So it seems that Chaos Cultist spam is back to winning grand tournaments already. The Christmas Battleforce prices are slightly worse than I thought they'd be, and there's a couple of new miniature reveals, including an all very inquisitorial Servo skull. Let's do a roundup of some Warhammer related news. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today I thought I'd round up a bunch of topics that didn't really need an entire video all to themselves, but are still things that I found interesting for Warhammer 40k and other Games Workshop releases over the past few days or so. Firstly, in the wake of Stormtrooper Infantry Imperial Guard winning a big tournament last week, it looks like the followers of the Dark Gods aren't to be outdone, as it seems that not one but two Chaos Cult army lists managed to go undefeated at last week's tournaments. It seems that flooding the board with an entire tide of mutants and traitors is still very much a top tier viable strategy, despite the big nerfs that it got in the last balance update. Previously, Chaos Cult had been doing kind of well in the hands of a few top players, often doing slightly horrendous board control type things with accursed cultists, and as a result the Dark Commune went up kind of massively, and the accursed cultists got a points nerf, plus also limiting their ability to surge move to just once per turn, but despite that it looks like the build is alive and well and very viable at top level play. This army list was run by Adam Dye and used it to take first at Bunker Down GT, a 42 player event, and went on to win 5-0, beating out a bunch of scary armies. It still seems that Accursed Cultists plus Dark Commune are a terror on the tabletop. There's 3 units of 16 Accursed Cultists, 2 of them led by Dark Communes, which give them invulnerable saves, a big turn of advance and charge and damage boosts, and rerolls for Dark Pacts and things, and the whole unit can be incredibly annoying to try and take out on objectives, as they can surge move directly into combat if they're fighting over a midfield one, and can genuinely have good damage output as well, particularly on the big turn with the Dark Commune. And throwing in some Chaos Cult stratagems and Dark Pacts into the mix, one gets warped foresights to scout into the midboard, and there's also a Dark Apostle with the Amulet of Tainted Vigor. He helps out in combat still, and can resurrect a bunch of slain models to get some torments back on the table. Despite some fairly hefty points increases, looks like they're still going to be an absolute terror trying to fight on the midboard objectives, and to back them up in this list, there's a unit of 20 cultists and 2 units of 10. Nice for sticky objectives and using the other Chaos Cult stratagems on, with big movement and damage available compared with what they can normally do. 2 sets of 3 Chaos Bikers, which are just all around efficient for moving fast, grabbing secondaries, and having more damage than you might expect for their points cost. A massive amount of board control in the early game with some big allied demons units, 2 big units of 9 Nurglings, which basically means that you could infiltrate screen the entire midboard if you wanted to. As they go, they're pretty durable per point as well, and can debuff enemy attacks, making it harder for them to kill other stuff. They could do some serious disruption turn 1. 2 small units of Nurglings, which I guess could help out for certain secondaries that don't rely on objective control, and then an absolutely terrifying big threat for some serious damage with a Warpsmith and a Khorne Lord of Skulls, which I guess would attract most of the anti-tank fire, but still is going to be a fearsome prospect to take down and put out loads of damage at range and in melee. Overall, looks like it could be a very difficult list to win against if played right. Some seriously annoying waves of chaff to keep the enemy back from the midboard and have you get ahead on victory points, but still not being able to relax on the damage front with that big Lord of Skulls moving around and just nuking a couple of units each turn. It is kind of impressive to still be winning with this, given how many more points you'd have to play with if you'd done this prior to the update. I think the list would have had an extra 120 points or so before all the rises, and the Accursed Cultist surge moves would have been even more crazy. As mentioned though, that wasn't the only one. Derek Apshie of 40k Dirtbags has also returned with his version of the Chaos Cult as well, already having taken down a bunch of tournaments prior to the update. This one went 5 wins to no losses to place second at the Flames of Autumn GT, and his version is at least kind of similar, the same Dark Apostle, 2 Dark Communes and the 3 blocks of Accursed Cultists, but then really quite different support, going really heavy on the smaller squads of 10 cultists with Traitor Guardsmen and cultists. Apparently Fabius Bile joins one of those squads of cultists in a Rhino for an annoying problem solver type unit. There's Cypher running around as a scary lone operative, and then some disruptive allied demons, a beast of Nurgle, some big scouting seekers, and some demonettes and Nurglings. Seems that in top tier competitive play, the mortal followers of Chaos are still having a rather good time of it. Before we move on to Battleforce prices and model reveals, I'll just give a quick shout out to today's video sponsor in Tabletop Tech. They're the makers of Mechie carry cases, one quite different option for transporting miniatures, having an interesting component system that grip onto model bases and hold them in place. Their components have some simple clips and spring-loaded bits, gripping onto bases, and they have tailored bits for most normal unit sizes and bigger things like knights or monsters. Their standard range has a bunch of slider cases at various different sizes and price points, though the news for them today is they've launched their Kickstarter for their upgraded Plus cases. These have only just gone live a few hours ago, and they've basically got a whole load of different designs that can fit different Warhammer 40k sections. You get the case and a whole bunch of components of your choice included within. You have the option to select a number of components to mount in them. For example, you'd get 6 selections in this one. This one's one of their medium-sized cases designed to fit any 40k combat patrol. And with the early bird price at the moment, it's $65, €61, or £51, and ship out from Australia where they're made. They've got other options for knights and monsters at the same sort of price level, and plenty of smaller, bigger end designs as well. Ones aimed at kill team, and massive, great big ones that are aimed at more sort of 2,000 point army level. This one's the biggest at their 24 plus one. In any case, if they're of interest, they're likely to be cheaper now with the early bird offers compared with what they'll be at just about any point in the future. I'll leave a link to the Kickstarter down in the video description, and a big thank you to them for sponsoring today's video. Moving on, and on Sunday, Games Workshop announced the Warhammer 40k Christmas Battleforces going up for pre-order. These ones have been confirmed to be going live on Saturday the 16th of November, so more general release on the 30th of November. They're kind of equivalent to Games Workshop's Black Friday sale, if they have one. A bunch of different discount deals for different armies. The ones this year have had a little bit of a mixed reception. For 40k, it's generally seen that the Inner Circle Task Force is probably the best out of them if you want to start a new army. Though still, any of the rest can be an interesting option to get the models contained within at a discount versus normally. The Tower one has got some very powerful battle suits that are pretty relevant in competitive lists. The Necrons are nice enough if you don't have duplicates of the miniatures, and the Knights one is quite fun and directly usable on the tabletop, though it has the annoyance of missing a couple of sprues from the Questoris box set. When I talked about them in a video on Sunday, I'd seen the leaks for the US and Canadian prices. It's definitely $240 in the US and $290 Canadian. It is a new price point that we haven't seen since the price rises from Games Workshop, so I was a bit more uncertain as to the euros and pounds, though unfortunately it looks like my estimates for those were a bit on the low side. It appears that in the EU they're going to be on sale for €190 rather than the 180 to 85 that I was guessing before. It seems in the UK they're going to be £150 as opposed to the 140 to 145 I was guessing before. So far I've still not seen the Australian prices, so feel free to let me know if you've got confirmation on those at all down in the comments. But based on those numbers, they're probably going to be around about the $400 Australian mark. It does mean that with those numbers it does take the shine off the discount a little bit. The Dark Angel still looks like one of the best in terms of theoretical discount, as well as in my opinion having some of the best models. The discount on them is around about 36% off compared with buying the same thing separately. It looks like it's more like 28% for most of the rest. So kind of in line with the same sort of discount that you'd get from 10th edition combat patrols, and that maybe does feel a little bit disappointing given that the Battleforce box sets are often significantly better than combat patrol kind of level. I'm sure those kind of price tags are going to be enough to put off plenty of people out there. There were a good few people commenting that they weren't feeling particularly inspired by them prior to the news of the prices, never mind after. Though I still think all of them can be useful if you do want literally the miniatures contained within. But I think the slightly more marginal discounts really do underline the importance of trying to get them from a discount retailer if at all possible. It just means that the saving that you're getting if you don't buy through a discount retailer is going to be far more marginal. Say if you had about 28% off the tower and you could have bought those same models from a 15% discount retailer, if you buy the Battleforce from Games Workshop, you're only saving around about 13% or so. And to my mind, that's getting to the point where it's really going to be borderline worth it, versus getting the models just a bit more sustainably and focusing entirely on the ones that you choose as opposed to the ones pre-selected here. As ever though, if you were looking to pick them up from discounters, there's all the usual channel affiliate ones down in the video description, anywhere between 10 and 21% off around the world. I'd certainly be ready to fall back to other discounters, or maybe Games Workshop themselves if you are sure that you're getting one despite the slightly higher prices, as I have a feeling that some of them will sell out kind of fast. These are the times where they're going live for pre-orders. Midnight Eastern Time between Friday and Saturday for Wargame Portal in the USA and Fenris Workshop in Canada, 10 AM in the UK via Element Games, midday Australia Eastern Time for Gap Games in Australia, and 11 AM Central European Time for Taschengeldieb in Germany and the EU. As ever, a big thank you to anyone using those linked in the video description. It does help to support the channel, though I'd certainly be prepared to fall back to other sites if they run out of some of the in-demand ones like the Dark Angels. Next up, we had a slightly more specific rumour engine that we've had for a little while. A few of the ones that posted recently were a bit non-specific, kind of hard to say whether they were something Imperium or Leaguers of Votan or similar. This one though is a little bit more resembling something that we've seen before. Basically a little inquisitorial servo skull featuring an antenna and a couple of lenses. that quite strongly resembles the one on the Deathwatch Watchmaster, the two skulls having a lot of similar features, the main difference being that the Watchmaster one is carrying a bunch of keys and this one is carrying what looks like a searchlight, plus also the cabling on them is a bit different. The inquisitorial eye on the forehead looks really quite similar to the Deathwatch one, which makes sense as the Deathwatch are a branch of the Ordo Xenos Inquisition, but it certainly doesn't mean that this bit is from a Deathwatch miniature in itself. Deathwatch already had their release for Imperial Agents in 10th edition, and that maybe lessens the chance of them getting any more new models. I think actually my first guess for it might be a Grey Knight character miniature of one sort or another. They'll be getting a miniature in 2025 in their codex, so it certainly could be a character model for them. Though I guess for other guesses, maybe they could do something like a Primaris Deathwatch kill team. That definitely doesn't seem impossible as a kill team release at some point in the future. It could be a more standard generic Inquisitor, which is still weirdly missing as an option for Imperial agents, though I'm not sure what the catalyst for the release would be, or it could be a limited edition miniature of some sort. They do seem to quite like limited edition Inquisitors. We've had the Warhammer Plus one and the Erasmus Cartavonius one in the past. It could even be something like an Inquisitorial kill team. Maybe having some Inquisitorial Stormtroopers could be another option they could do for that. Definitely lots of possibilities. Certainly not out of the question it could be a resculpt of the Watchmaster, though it maybe does feel a little bit unlikely, given the way they usually come out with ranges of miniatures alongside codexes, as opposed to just completely randomly after a codex has dropped. Let me know what your thoughts are on this guy down in the comments though. It seems that Games Workshop won't be doing quite as many of those rumours and teasers over the Christmas period this year though. In an article on Monday, Games Workshop said that there wouldn't be an Advent engine coming in December. In the past they've often done little daily teasers of some miniatures to be released in the future. In the last Advent engine we had a fair few pictures of what turned out to be that provisionally prepared Rattlings miniature, plus a few things that are still yet unrevealed and look like they could be Imperial Guard style stuff. Most likely coming with the upcoming Krieg range, including a command squad and I believe a minefield marker of some sort. They didn't really say exactly what will be taking its place though. They said it was going to be some sort of Grotzmas calendar featuring the Red Gobbo. I'm not sure what kind of content it'll have. If it's just art, I'd find that a bit less interesting. But I guess it could be sneak peeks or teasers of another sort, so I guess we'll see what they come out with for that one. In any case though, it looks like they're doing a Red Gobbo themed giveaway. This one is one of the incentives to get people to sign up to their Warhammer email newsletter. Apparently they're going to run 5 competitions one by one, each week having a picture of the Red Gobbo appear in one of their articles on the Warhammer community webpage, such as this one with the snake here. And if you sign up to their newsletter, they'll send you an entry form, I'd guess each week, asking for the picture displayed on the little bit of art. And then they put all the successful entrants into a draw, and it looks like the prize is to win a Combat Patrol box of your choice, plus a randomly selected Joy Toy miniature. And there's one overall grand prize of a VIP trip to Warhammer World with flights and hotel included. I guess that might be of interest to some of you given that it's free. For model reveals, we had another weird and twisted thing for Necromunda. This creepy thing is called the Servant of the Silent Ones, apparently a sort of part flesh, part plasteel mechanical horror, made by the creepy fellows at House de Lac, and it seems very happy to put its mechanical jaws to work on human flesh, as you can see by the arm of a rather unfortunate gang member devoured by the beast. They do seem to be rather good at keeping a fresh and steady design of all rather horrific Necromunda releases coming. Generally the models have been pretty well received, and as with quite a few of them, like those twisted mouse train things, it's going to be made of 412 resin, so it'll be a fair bit pricier than normal character miniatures from Games Workshop. Otherwise they had a fairly fun reveal for Lord of the Rings earlier today. A great big snow troll with a couple of orc scavengers to support. I think the troll itself is really quite a fun miniature. I guess this will be another one of the things that's coming for that upcoming War of the Rohirrim film. They've had a fair few miniature reveals for that, and looks like this guy's well capable of causing some carnage. Again, this one's going to be a 412 resin creation, so expect a high price tag if you want to pick one up. And otherwise, for their Warhammer community pieces, they've had some digital releases for the Warhammer Underworld's core rules going live, which might be of interest to a few of you if you want to check out that particular setting. Otherwise though, for the 40k news in the future, there's definitely some interesting stuff on the horizon. There's the Christmas Battleforces this weekend, of course, but then hot on the heels of that, there'll be a reveal show sometime around the 22nd of November, hopefully giving us some Krieg things. And then shortly after that World Champions of Warhammer event, they've said that there's going to be a balanced data slate coming. Lots of stuff confirmed for that already, including changes for Codex Space Marines, Genestealer Cult Sisters and Deathwatch, a couple of nerfs to Tempestus Aquilons, with probably a points increase as well, and I've no doubt a bunch of other things as well, likely some new points to go alongside. I'd hope they might do something for Imperial Agents as well, being the army that's struggling the most in the game. It's not just the Deathwatch that are having problems. In any case though, let me know your thoughts as to Chaos Cult doing well, more expensive Battleforces, and model teasers and reveals. I look forward to hearing all your thoughts down in the comments as always. Finally though, I'll just cycle back to the video sponsor and Tabletop Tech with their Mechie Carry Case Kickstarter just going live. It might be of interest to some of you out there, having really quite a different and interesting take on transporting miniatures around, the idea being to have small grippy components that hold the bases of models to stop them rattling around in storage, perhaps trying to embrace some of the advantages of magnetised models but without actually having to magnetise the miniatures to bases, and instead use some simple components instead. As with just about all 40k transport systems, they will have some positives and negatives. My first take on these is that they're probably going to be better for either smaller collections or things that might well stay the same from game to game quite a lot. They certainly seem fairly nice for things like combat patrols, kill teams, spearheads, or maybe medium-sized armies that you're going to keep the same models being transported day in day out. Though if you do have a 2,000 point army that is going to be quite a consistent one, you can certainly fit it in some of the bigger cases that they've got. The cases themselves look good. They're well made and are fun and satisfying to use. Having the clear front panel to be able to see the miniatures during storage is quite a nice feature, and plenty of them have options for wall-mounted things or lights to double up as display cases. For potential downsides and drawbacks, compared with some other options, they could be a bit less speedy to get things in and out of due to having to operate each simple component or machine when you do so. I've seen a few people online describe them as a bit over-engineered, which might well be the case even if it's well made, and I feel like that could be a little bit onerous sometimes for a really big army. And maybe compared with some cases, they're not quite as flexible once they're set up. You would need the right component bits for the right base sizes and things, and that would mean that if you do set it up with one force and then you wind up wanting to change things around really quite a lot, you might need to order in more components, and then to swap from one thing or another, it would take at least some time to swap out from one bit to the next. Even if it isn't the most work in the world, it could add a little bit of time versus, say, magnet options or using a more simple rough and ready model solution like bubble wrap in a box of some sort. Broadly speaking though, I've generally heard good things from people who have actually used them. They're certainly pretty fun and satisfying to use, and not having to mount magnets does have some advantages I guess. Plus, at least with the early bird deals on the Kickstarter, they don't look too terrible on the price side of things versus the competition right now. In any case, feel free to check them out, links down in the video description. As mentioned, the Combat Patrol size cases have fairly cheap pledges going at time of recording, $65 or €61. And they do have a whole bunch of both larger and smaller cases as well. Big ones designed to be able to try and fit 2,000 point forces, and some smaller ones aimed at skirmish games and kill team. In any case, a big thank you to Tabletop Tech for sponsoring the video. There'll be links down below. I'll leave this one here for now though. Look forward to hearing all your thoughts as to the news and announcements, and feel free to check out the other bits down in the video description if you'd like to support the channel. There's the channel's Patreon page, which has a few advantages for backers, plus the discount links to get models a little bit cheaper versus Games Workshop, and the ones in the video description support the channel a bit too. In any case though, an absolutely massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.